could see actually as well, like Perez actually has like 2.5 seconds more pit stop time than maybe
And Bottas or
Bottas.
something, yeah. 'Cause it was that first stop that cost him big. He would have been a shoo-in for third if it weren't for that.
Actually, no, you are. He's actually sorry, no, he's got 20 seconds more. But Hamilton, who did a second stop but didn't have as much of an issue, it's kind of okay. It's not as powerful as it could be, to be honest. It's a bit sort of some of it's a bit you have to do the maths yourself, but
It's progress, I suppose. We're live on YouTube now, just so you know as well.
so everyone's finding out about me being fascinated.
I
Me
don't think
being
that
fast.
I don't think that's a development they didn't see coming, to be honest.
It's just something that I just wish they'd had like earlier at times. It's I don't know. It's quite difficult to get like sort of a breakdown of stuff.
It's light years ahead of what it used to be, though. I mean, in the Bernie days, there was nothing like this. It was just like you had to literally figure out everything yourself.
Oh, see the thing. I have a bone to bit with the Bernie days because he was actually ahead of his time on the whole. You pay a flat fee, to Formula One, and you get the rate, you get a certain amount of coverage. So he was actually way ahead of his time. The problem was, obviously, the internet back in 2000. I think it was like 2003 or something. He tried it, 2005
Yeah.
maybe earlier than that. Actually, thinking about it, he was just way ahead of his time. So it didn't really work out. But then, obviously, Formula One later in the sort of noughties, 2010s, when Facebook and Twitter really took off, he obviously eschewed social media. So Formula One has recently gone from the smallest, one of the smallest presences on social media, literally the bare minimum, to actually one of the biggest, and it's the fastest growing sport in North America by social media engagement.
Oh wow, that's a
But
stat and a half. That.
yeah, so because Bernie was essentially like, uh, I don't want to, I don't care about the young guys. I want the old guys. I want the old guy who's always watched Formula One, who's got loads of money, which is fair enough.
It works in the short term, but
Yeah, I was going to say that
eventually,
works in the short term, but the problem is that the old guys that have lots of money aren't going to be, old and with lots of money for long,
no.
and the young people who don't have any money will get money, and then, you can sort of fill in the gaps yourself of why that might not be the most far-sighted business plan.
No, it definitely is not.
There you go. Anyone watching, you got some business knowledge that you might not have had of Bernie Ecclestone's.
As well, yeah. Right, let's share this around. Oh my god! It just takes a random thumbnail of when you start it. And I'm just there, literally like.
Yeah, or like, see, I don't want it to be me, just like, or
Well,
whatever.
you're not. Thankfully, it's
Like if you
definitely me
ever,
that's like the side down here.
it's like when you pause a well, either a video or a DVD or something, but you never seem to get the actor or the actress in like a flattering like facial expression.
No,
It's always like mid blink.
yeah, always some motion blurring. There's always a weird expression.
Well, that's what I don't understand. Like the motion blur, I get why it happens, obviously scientifically. Like there's only 1/25th of a second for light to be coming in before the sensor refreshes. But
Yeah.
I'm just like, how can it be so unflattering? Like,
There was a footballer the other day. It wasn't Phil Jones, obviously, but there's someone who did a Phil Jones-esque facial expression. I can't think of the bloody hell it was. I think it was a Man United player though at the Euros.
I don't know,
Who was
probably.
it?
I don't know. It might be.
Well, Wales and Denmark yesterday, and it
It
was.
won't be McTominay. No. Wales and Denmark. Who plays for Wales? He also plays for Man United.
I can't think. I don't think
Oh,
any of them do. And then there's Italy and
is,
Austria.
is he in Austria?
It might not be Man United player. I might get
Are you
mixed
sure it's
up.
not like Chelsea or something like Lampadu? Or if it
Oh,
if it's in the bill?
I don't think Ampadu got off the bench.
Okay, no.
No.
To be honest, I didn't watch it. I just that's not out of fear of the result. That's just I was doing something. I'd already taken too much time with my friends away for Formula One. I don't think they would have appreciated it if I was just like. I was about to
Yeah.
ask how the traffic noise is, but I realised that if you can't hear on the podcast when when my friend's dog's trying to get into the room, you probably won't hear the rumbling of buses outside my window either.
No, can't hear anything. No, eh?
Unless you do, in which case, then you know, thanks the way of the world.
God, how bad was Ricardo today, eh?
I don't know. It's the sort of thing that makes you wonder if there's something wrong with the car.
Well, how bad was the result? I should say. I mean, because I don't think it was him. I think he did have an intermittent power issue, didn't he? He can't have been that
It did
bad.
claim to have a power issue. Yeah, sometimes they have to like if you have a power issue, they can sort of fix it as best they can. But they do. I know they do a lot of nursing. Like we'll get into it obviously. But Williams were content.
Oh.
Well, not content, but for a while we're content to top up my hydraulic pressure like that.
Still too raw. I can't believe it. I genuinely thought this was it. It was so.
It's going to
it
keep
was set up
happening.
so perfectly.
Honestly, that's going to be the Russell curse, isn't it?
The thing is, as well, it would have been absolutely massive for them because if he finished 8th, they would be up. They'd be above Alfa Romeo.
Isn't that like 4 points or something, or 3 points?
4 points.
Hey, I do know.
And Alfa Romeo have 2, so it would have been humongous for him. But it was not to be.
Alas, no.
Fate and lack of hydraulic pressure said no. So
there we go. I don't think it matters actually. I think it's one or the other. One of the fluids.
You're right, Coops.
Hello, how you doing?
Doing all right, thank you. You're coming in a little quiet.
Oh, I'll just move the mic a bit closer. How's that sound?
Better.
Awesome.
Just so you know, we're live on YouTube. We got starting the show any minute now. What did you make of the race then? It weren't the best one, but wasn't the worst either, I guess.
It was a bit. The start was all right, but you knew pretty quick that Verstappen was going to go away with it. So it was almost a very Hamilton-esque drive from Verstappen. He went away and he just got on with it. And then Hamilton was doing the Verstappen going, I can't get closer to him. And that was it. Really. It was it's not one that we're going to remember, put it that way.
No. It's one that George Russell's going to remember, though, for all the wrong reasons, bless him.
Well, in his Williams career, is there many he's going to remember for anything other than that, to be honest?
No. No, absolutely nothing. He's got nothing to write home about, really. But that's not for lack of trying.
No.
Right. I will. Yeah, that's all right. You lads ready to get going?
Yeah, all good.
Okie doke. 4 wins in a row for the Red Bulls spell big trouble for Mercedes, and we're going to have to do it all again next week in Austria. Welcome back to the Grid Talk podcast, everybody. This is episode number 116, where we'll be reviewing the 2021 Styrian Grand Prix. I am your host, George Howson, and today I'm joined by engineering graduate Owain Medford.
Hello.
And Coops from the EF1 podcast.
Hello.
Afternoon, lads. So let's get into this. I did say yesterday on the qualifying show that it was kind of in the bag almost for Max Verstappen, that he was the very heavy favourite to win today's race. And Owain, he absolutely proved it today. Like Coops was just saying before the show today, it was a Hamilton-esque drive from Max Verstappen today to clinch victory.
Yeah, I've been saying for a few weeks that you've seen almost a role reversal right now between Red Bull and Mercedes, where Red Bull are doing all the things that Mercedes used to do over a weekend. Verstappen, he had sort of a quarter of a second in hand over qualifying. And in the race, it looked initially, it looked like it was building to maybe the fact that Hamilton had, he was keeping time behind, or he was just protecting his tyres. I know that Amazon or F1 with the help of AWS, flashed up a graphic showing he had sort of way more tyre performance. But it seemed that when push came to shove, Hamilton couldn't get close enough, and it ended up sort of being, by the end of the race, obviously about a 15-second gap that had been pulled out. Verstappen just seemed to have all the answers, and Hamilton sitting there, having to go and grab the fastest lap point, which obviously put his gap down at sort of 35 seconds. That's kind of the story of the race. He just didn't seem to have the sharpest weapons in the shed there.
Yep, definitely. Max Verstappen today was just a better driver. He got pole position fair and square yesterday, and today he just pulled out a gap that he never looked like relinquishing, really. And I'd say Coops, it's looking very, very good for Red Bull. Like I mentioned, it now it's 4 wins in a row for them. 3 of the last 4 races Verstappen has won, and he should have won in Azerbaijan as well if it wasn't for the tyre failure. It's looking like he's the very heavy favourite at the moment for the World Championship.
Oh, you can't really argue against that, to be honest. I mean, we still have quite a long way to go, clearly, but no one's really going to put money on anyone else, especially when you've got Hamilton coming out and saying they don't really know why they don't have the answers. I mean, that's the biggest thing. You could be a half a second behind. As long as you know why you're half a second behind, it's not that big a deal if you've got the resources to fix it. But Hamilton's saying, we don't know, it could be the engine, it could be the rear wing, we just don't know, which that's a worrying thing for anyone who's a Hamilton or Mercedes fan. If you can't figure out why you're behind, how are you going to fix it? And you're at the same track next weekend. So it's not boding well for sure for the Silver Arrows team at the minute.
Yeah, it's looking like it's going to be a difficult weekend for the next weekend for Austria 2 Electric Boogaloo, to be honest with you. It's, they're under pressure. Double podium from today, admittedly. It doesn't look too bad on paper, but in the Drivers' Championship, and in the Constructors as well, they have taken more of a hit there. So, yeah, it's not looking too great for Mercedes at the moment, but it's not through lack of trying, Owain. I mean, Lewis Hamilton today, I think he did everything he could. He even pit with a few laps to go, like you said, and he got the fastest lap point, 35 seconds behind in the end. It doesn't tell the full story, but he was still a good 15 seconds off before his pit stop, I believe. So there's a big pace deficit there that will concern him.
Yeah, it was sort of extending by a good quarter of a second, half a second a lap. I think it's more to close to half a quarter of a second really. It's really, as Coops was saying, it's difficult when you don't know what's going wrong. And it was the issue that I think Williams had a few years ago and still do somewhat, where you don't realise, if they knew what to do to fix it, they'd have done it already. They're a team with more than enough resources, and obviously the budget cap slightly hampers them, but they're still Mercedes AMG Formula One team, and that's not something to joke about when it comes to being able to put the resource in place and make changes that are going to benefit them. But for whatever reason, they're just not gelling for some reason. Just not gelling with the car, just not getting it essentially. And as much as that could be seen as a bad thing, I think there's a little bit of hope in the fact that they may not turn things around by next week, but there's at least the chance to sort of have a before and after, and just maybe get a little bit more understanding. I think that's the solace that they can take in this weekend, apart from the double podium. So I think they've just outscored Red Bull for the constructors, so that's obviously important. The drivers is all well and good, but the money is at the end of the day what they're looking for. So hopefully they can find some answers in the sort of debrief through this week, and maybe pull out a slightly better result, and get a bit closer next weekend.
Yeah, if they get a bit closer next weekend, it'll definitely be encouraging for them. And they got Silverstone coming up as well, which traditionally is a Hamilton and a Mercedes circuit. But we said the same thing in France as well before that race, and Red Bull were the fastest team there. So third place Coops was Valtteri Bottas. Now, obviously, he had his penalty after spinning in practice, embarrassing in the pit lane. But today he did an all right job, but he did get lucky with Perez having his pit stop troubles. I mean, how do you rate his performance today?
It's pretty anonymous. He did what he had to do. There's not really much else you can do when you've got Hamilton in front of you and Verstappen, who's got a car that you can't really race. He should have been further up the grid. He had that silly Grosjean-esque spin in the pits at qualifying, which was interesting. I think it was a gear issue. I think they decided to start a different procedure to pull away from the box, and it gave him more wheel spin than he was expecting. But hey, them's the rules, unfortunately. Bottas is a quandary at the minute. He's clearly, there's something going on in that team. He's not. I think personally, and I've said it for a few times on the our Everything F1 pod, I think he's already been told he ain't staying next year. Just by his behaviour, just by the way things are going, the way Toto's came out, and I think the biggest thing was when Toto came out and said it was Bottas's fault that the wheel nut machined itself on in Monaco. Okay, like, all right, Paul, no, but yeah, he did what he had to do. He is clearly the number 2, and regardless of whatever he says in pre-season, how many different types of porridge he has in pre-season, he's number 2. But he did what a number 2 driver in Mercedes is supposed to do: get in the podium, get the points for the constructors, got ahead of Perez. So in terms of that, he did what he's set out to do.
Yeah, that's the thing for Bottas. Credit where it's due. He got the place he was meant to get today. He was the best he was ever going to get, his third, really. But yeah, a bit of an anonymous day as well, like you said. Yeah, and obviously, I've had a few people say the exact same thing as you, Coops, there, that Bottas is on the way out. He's probably been told that he's on the way out, and just everything that's been going on, from the wheel nut to not getting out of the way for Hamilton. And the rage that they had on the radio in France about the strategy. At least he was happy about the strategy today. That was something. But yeah, so better result for Bottas. But it's good enough, I suppose, for this weekend. But he needs to do better. He's still behind Lando Norris in the Drivers' Championship, which I think is incredible. And Coops is very happy about, and I'm very happy about as well. But yeah, so we'll move on to a guy who won't be happy. He'll be a bit disappointed with today. But not because of his performance, really, Owain. Sergio Perez, he started in 4th place, which was all right. But a bad pit stop putting behind Valtteri Bottas. And despite putting some tyres on towards the end, he couldn't quite catch up, just half a second off the podium for Checo. But still not a bad day, really, when you think about it. He was where he was supposed to be, really, in the top 4.
Yeah, he's exactly where he needs to be for Red Bull. Obviously it's a shame that he's not got the, he's been half a second off the podium, and could have done with a couple more laps, actually, because he was closing incredibly quickly. I think Red Bull's strategy maybe hinged on a safety car or some other type of hindrance, and the fact that he himself pit one up at the pit stop is obviously not helpful at all for what he did. But given the fact that he's then had to work around that and make up sort of I think in total is probably ends up about 20-second gap, over 20-second gap, including the second pit stop, and he's ended up half a second away, which is 1 safety car, and it changes everything because he's got rubber on his tyres and Bottas wouldn't have done. That being said, that didn't happen, and unfortunately, track position was king here. I think Perez is. I'll put it this way: I don't think Albon or a number of other drivers that Red Bull have had in the past would have been able to do it. So I don't think that's going to be a mark against him. Really, it's just a sort of a Bottas returning to form and just a slightly sort of unlucky circumstances that actually helped out Bottas over Perez and just kept him off the podium there.
Yeah, Perez is, it's not a bad day for him by any means. And yeah, you're right. Albon wouldn't have done that. Gasly, as good as he is in the AlphaTauri, he just wasn't right for the Red Bull at that time. There's no way he would have got 4th place today. I think Austria 2019, he got lapped by Verstappen, and that wasn't the only time they got lapped by Verstappen during that season. And Red Bull, they've still got an advantage. They still have made a gain on Mercedes this week, and Red Bull scoring 37 points. And Mercedes scoring 34. So Red Bull extend their gap over Mercedes to 40 points. It's a fairly hefty gap, that. That's almost a race at 4 points, that. So be interesting to see if Mercedes can claw that back. On current form, you'd say no, really. But someone who will be elated again today with his performance will be Lando Norris. Again, he's in the points. He continues his point streak, continues being best of the rest. 5th place again, Coops. It's another excellent day for a young British driver in that McLaren, isn't it?
It is. Lando is just he's shown why he should be the leader in the McLaren, and shown why he is one of the next generation of drivers. You know, as much as Hamilton fans will maybe not want to admit it, he's coming to probably his last contract, you know. So, you know, you've got Raikkonen fighting at the back of the grid, you know, Vettel in the middle of the grid. So we're looking at a new generation of drivers, and he's slowly but surely shown, especially this season, that he's going to be one of the contenders. You know, that car is the McLaren car is a difficult car to drive. You look at the Ricciardo situation; he's not a bad driver. He just isn't able to get he's not able to get at one with the car. He's not confident with it. But yeah, Lando, I think the lowest he's finished this season is 6th, if I'm right. A couple of podiums already. So yeah, he done what he needed to do. He got himself up there at the front, let the faster cars in front of him, and just got him his own race. And yeah, he's 4th. He's ahead of Valtteri Bottas in the Mercedes. Can't do much better than that, to be fair.
Oh, it's better than what you think should be possible, really, in that McLaren. You think he'd be behind the top 2 teams, but he's not. He's ahead of Bottas fair and square. Yeah, great day for him. You thought maybe he could have held up the Mercedes of Bottas and the Red Bull of Perez for a little longer, but looking how fast they pulled away, I think McLaren would have done very, very well to finish ahead of them. They would have just undercut them probably, or overcut them for that matter. So moving on, and now Ferrari, they had an awful weekend in France with their race pace in particular, but Owain, it was a complete reverse of that. Despite how much they were out of the points early on in this one because of an incident for Leclerc and Sainz just starting fairly far down the field, they've ended up finishing 6th and 7th. Sainz with I think an incredible drive to 6th, really.
Yeah, he's done well, and I would say Leclerc as well has done amazing, bearing in mind where he ended up, functionally last at one point. It's essentially that it's come back to bite me, really, because I said that they didn't have any race pace, and I said that the track didn't suit them, and what have they done? They've made it essentially best of the rest, bar Norris. And just completely proved me wrong. That's it's a brilliant result, and it's great for what it is. But it's the lowest Ferrari can really expect to. It's the lowest that Ferrari really should be finishing. But they've done it, and they've done it against quite a lot of odds that I think a lot of people would have bet against them, not just myself. So I think Sainz and Leclerc getting up there, showing us why they're so good, because there'll be certain other drivers who maybe wouldn't be able to do that so well. They've done a genuinely sort of a speechlessly good job, is what I'd say.
Yeah, brilliant weekend for them in the end. And they've ended up gaining on McLaren, shockingly, because of Ricciardo not scoring this weekend, which you just would not have seen happening after about 5 laps or so. But I mean, Coops, how good was Charles Leclerc today? I mean, he got a podium at this track at a terrible Ferrari last year. And when he was so far down the field today, you thought, he's just going to be finished out of the points. He's just going to finish short. But they put him on the hards. They ran him long, and his pace was amazing.
Yeah, Charles Leclerc is doing what Charles Leclerc does. As you've just touched on, that SF1000 last year was an absolute dog. And he had it on the podium. He got it into the top 10 shootout. So he's one of those rare drivers that you see doing something stupid at the start of the race, which, and to be fair, it was Leclerc's fault with the accident. He tried to get into the slipstream, clipped Gasly's rear wheel, took out his front wing, ended Gasly's race. But you just don't count him out. He's very much an Alonso mould. He's put in a car that doesn't deserve to be where it is. Now, that car does deserve to be 5th, 6th, and 7th. But after the first lap, you'd think, I don't know. He is. Sainz and Leclerc should be the future of Ferrari for a long time to come. The only worry you have, and it's the same for Ferrari, for their suspiciously, we didn't cheat engines, but yeah, come on. If they get the engines wrong, next year, it's 5 years you're stuck with that engine because there's an engine freeze starting. So, as long as they get something right for next year, because they're not going down the split turbo route that Mercedes and Honda already do. It seems to have a kind of common practice. They're not going down that route, so let's hope that they haven't got themselves into a bit of a situation. But yeah, Leclerc at Austria, driver of the day for the fans. You can see why. It's a very weird race, this, because nothing happened. Everybody was largely anonymous. Verstappen was at the front, Hamilton done his own thing, Norris done his own thing, Leclerc was down the back, and all of a sudden at the end of the race he was 7th, and you're like, where did he come from? So, yeah, he's just doing what he does, and they're finally starting to give him a car that actually allows him to do it without monumental efforts and funky strategies and people falling off the road in front of him.
Yeah, fair play to Leclerc. He's done amazingly well today. I mean, if you just look at the race in a nutshell, he started 7th and he finished 7th, but that does not tell the story of his Grand Prix at all. He was brilliant today, and yeah, he did benefit probably from the massive Alonso train that was in the midfield, but still, around a track where you shouldn't be able to gain that much time because it's so simple. He was just. He just pulled, I think he must have made up at least 25, 30 seconds. He was miles behind after the first lap. And like you said, it was his fault, that incident with Gasly. He had to change his front wing, went right to the back behind everybody, but he's ended up 7th. And it's a good haul of points for Ferrari on a weekend where I and a lot of people thought they'd struggle. Someone else who I think has got the most out of his car this weekend is Lance Stroll, Owain. I mean, he qualified 10th, which is probably not where he wants to be because he didn't have a choice of 3 tyres. But he's made the most of it, and he was sick for a long time, but the Ferraris just pipped him at the end. Still, though, I think he'll be happy with that today.
Yeah, it's fairly decent. It's where it's outscoring a number of Aston Martin's rivals that we found out that they actually are fighting with. So AlphaTauri, and who does want to try Alpine? Sorry,
Alpine.
Yeah, there we go, got it. Outscored them. I don't really remember. Like, they didn't really cut to him, so I don't really remember him doing much. But he's got a decent result. And it's off the back of after Baku, we'd have been wanting a couple of solid points finishes, and that's exactly what he's got. So that's good for him. It's good for the team. I honestly can't say much beyond that because I don't remember seeing him. I just remember the odd pass, but I mean he's pipped a Fernando Alonso, and I think, to be honest, that's one thing you want to be able to put on your sort of racing driver CV is that you've beaten Fernando Alonso, so you can at least say that. But beyond that, a nice boring race for him in some ways. As weird as that is to say.
Yeah, it was fairly anonymous. I only really remember seeing him when he was getting overtaken by the Ferraris. That was kind of it, to be honest. Someone we did see a lot of, though, was Fernando Alonso, and he held up a lot of people. He was a massive Alonso train, Alonso Express, as I call it in our group chat. And, but fair play to him. He did everything he could, really. I think he got the most out of what that Alpine could produce, really, Coops.
Yeah, the Alpine's a very strange kind of situation. It's a very stable car. It's a good looking car as well, but it just doesn't really have the pace at the minute, and I think that's a big part of Renault's issue. But Alonso's there to get them in front. Unfortunately, so far this season, Ocon's been pretty much out driving him, which is something I really don't like saying. Because if anybody's heard on the Everton F1 pod that I'm on, I don't like Ocon. I never have done. But he's proven me very wrong. God damn it. But anyway, I digress. I have to say, yeah, the only thing I remember with Alonso was Stroll passed him round the outside. And I'm trying to remember which corner that was. It was after the kind of tight right-hander, and I can't remember which number, but as we come on to the kind of last sector, the kind of sweeping last sector, Stroll just fired round the outside of Alonso, and away he went, which, Stroll comes down for a lot of stick, and he's actually a decent driver. So, well, when you've got Mazepin on the grid, it kind of takes the focus away from Stroll. But, yeah, it's weird. Alonso, I don't know what to really say about Alonso. It's very strange. You can't really put a finger on it. Whether it's just the equipment, whether he's just been, the stats show that if you once you hit 40, you're just not successful in Formula One. I think Nigel Mansell is the only person to win a race after turning 40 ever in Formula One. In the kind of modern era, obviously back in the 50s, they were all over. They're all in their 40s and 50s, But so, yeah, again, it's just I think that it's a very strange race. As Owen's saying, it's pretty much every driver had, maybe if you take out Gasly and you take out Russell, everybody had a very boring race. They just kind of just got on with it. I mean, Mazepin didn't spin. Schumacher didn't hit Mazepin or spin on his own because they're just as good as each other at doing that. And everybody just done what they did. Yeah, but yeah.
Yeah, so it was fairly straightforward for a lot of people, which is what a lot of them would have wanted. But yeah, I think with Alonso, that you said, the car isn't that great. I think he's doing everything he can. I mean, this season it's been quite. I think overall it's been quite even between him and Ocon. I'd edge it towards Alonso, especially lately. I think he's doing the best he can, frankly, with that car. I don't think that Alpine is that good, especially when you consider the engine. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. If you can do it again next week, it'd be a great result for him again. Points is just what Alpine need. They need points to get past Aston Martin and AlphaTauri because they're in danger of getting cut adrift to them too, really. Speaking of AlphaTauri, another guy like Lance Stroll that'd be happy for a quiet race would have been Yuki Tsunoda, and he picked up the final point in 10th. He would have started further up the grid, but he had his penalty for holding up Bottas. But again, I think a point is not a bad day for him, really.
Yeah, after the sort of little rookie mistake of just being in the way, honestly, when someone's on a push lap, Tsunoda, we didn't see some of the things some of the histrionics that we maybe seen earlier in the season. And as I said yesterday, I think he's just having nice and solid results, and that's what they need out of him. I don't think anyone expects him to be going up there and challenging the Ferraris or the McLarens of the world. But currently he's doing a good job, and I think for him right now, especially with the sort of lower practice time and testing time that we've had this season specifically, the mileage is key. The mileage is key, and the experience on all of the circuits, rather than just one, will help him. And keeping someone like Kimi Räikkönen behind, or Sebastian Vettel, or Ricciardo, as bad as races maybe they had, that's important. That's good to gain to get his confidence up, and to sort of work out maybe the small kinks that he'll have, and small chinks in the armor that he's going to have, but to get him into a more well-rounded racing driver sort of place. He's incredibly exciting, and he's showing the sort of the promise that we wanted. So it's good just to sort of, for him to have 70 laps that were basically uninterrupted. Really, we saw some good passes, and hopefully he can continue those.
Yep, no reason why I can't do it again next week. So next up, we got 11th place and just missing out on points despite making a lot of places up. I don't know. I think they ran him long, to be honest. Like Aston Martin have made a big success with Sebastian Vettel, but Kimi Räikkönen, 11th place, Coops. I mean, I think it's more than what he could have hoped for, and honestly, after that poor qualifying. But I think he might be kicking himself. If he started further up the grid, he could have nicked a point.
Yeah, but the Alfa Romeo car isn't exactly fabulous. I think 11th is pretty much what you're going to get with the Alphas, unless there's some sort of shenanigans. I think for them to get anything out of the race, I think they needed Gasly to maybe crash into 3 or 4 more cars, to be honest. The Alphas are just doing what they do. They're pretty much on their own. They're not going to get near the AlphaTauri. They're too far in front. They aren't too far back to get hit with Haas. So they're kind of sitting in that kind of weird area that Williams are kind of occupied for the last couple of seasons. They're just cruising on and getting on with it. Occasionally they see them at the top end of Q2, maybe sneaking into Q1. But there's not much else to say, really. Yeah, he done what he did. cars down the back of the grid have to try a different strategy, and why not put Raikkonen on it? He's experienced, he knows his stuff. Stick him in the hards. It's a bit like what they did with Stroll at Baku before his tyre went. Fired him on long and see how it shakes out. So yeah, I think they'll be quite happy. I can't remember where Giovinazzi finished behind them, but in terms of Raikkonen, yeah, I don't see them getting any further up than 11th, to be honest.
Yeah, they have 2 points in the name Alfa Romeo, but it's a rare day when they get that. They have finished 11th a lot, though. I think that's their 4th 11th place this season, but if some boats, Nearlies and all that, it's all hypotheticals. Back in the old days, it used to be 6 for the top 6 used to get points and nobody else, so I don't think they can really complain. But yeah, a guy who's really been brought down to earth today, Owain, in 12th place was Sebastian Vettel. I had him for a top 5 as my bold prediction. I was miles off, as usual, with my bold prediction. Back on form myself with that one. But yeah, a bit disappointing. And like Coops has said, an anonymous race, really. We didn't really see him that much.
Yeah, it's a certain amount. I think that's because he wasn't doing much.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm just trying to look at the retirements because I think
there was only two. There's only Gasly.
To be fair, actually, the 2 retirements that there were people who started ahead of him. So, unless I've missed an overtake or something, I don't think he actually made one beyond just the retirements.
He might not have done because he started 14th. He ended up 12th. So those were his 2 passes.
Yeah, maybe it's just that in a sort of high altitude environment of Styria, that the Aston Martin just doesn't work so well. Which is probably a little bit ironic given their TV advertising in the UK, where it's shown in the Scottish Highlands. But it's unfortunate because you don't want to see Vettel running around there, and he's had better races fairly recently. But unfortunately, he's just not having that. It's just not working for him. Hopefully he can sort of reset, come back in a week's time, but. I'm not sure I really see that happening, to be honest. It just seems a bit sort of, if Sebastian Vettel can't pass forward, and we know he can. This isn't 2012 or 2013. I just don't see where he's going right now. He seems a bit sort of almost a bit rudderless.
Yeah, he had an average qualifying in a very average race. He's just come back down to earth. Like I said, he's had some amazing races recently, but yeah, not today, not for him. The Red Bull ring does not really suit that Aston Martin. But saying that, Lance Stroll did get points. He did do a good job today, did Stroll, I think. But yeah, he'll be hoping for more next weekend. Started 13th, finished 13th, and I'd definitely describe him as being unlucky today. It was Daniel Ricciardo, Coops, and he was in the points early on because of some of the guys in front of him moving out of the way, retiring, crashing, pit stopping or whatever. But he seemed to have some sort of engine issue, fell back, and then had another engine issue and fell back again. It just a day to forget for him, really.
It's fast becoming the headline of his season in that McLaren, unfortunately. As I touched on earlier, we were talking about Norris. It's a very peculiar car, and after a couple of races, I think Ricciardo asked Sainz about it. Or Sainz said to Ricciardo, "Strange car that McLaren, isn't it?" So it's when you've got someone like Ricciardo, who's usually his strengths is on the brakes, and you put him in a car and he doesn't have the confidence on the brakes. You're taking out that main part of his talent. Now, he's got to learn to adapt to it and work it out, and, he should do that. But yeah, as you say, he didn't qualify well, got himself up a few passes, then a power gremlin came in. I think, going by the Sky coverage, he said it was some kind of software issue because they said that they solved it. So that must have been some kind of software thing, and then it creeped back in again, and that was you. That's all she wrote. But yeah, it's a peculiar season, and it's very disappointing because I like Ricciardo, and I like McLaren. They're kind of the team that I go to. And to see, Norris up in 5th, and like on your cell, and you look down, and you're looking down and looking down, and there's Ricciardo in 13th or 14th. You're like, oh, come on. We just want a race where he finishes, he just suddenly appears in 3rd or 4th. Just there, and you're like, oh, there we go. That's the guy we're looking for. There he is. we saw a glimpse of that recently where he was kind of at Paul Ricard. And we can finally talk about the French Grand Prix without getting told to put a pound in the swear box, because it was actually a good race. You know, and he was back to his old self. He's like, "Come on, let's do it. Let's get on there." He was chirping on the radio and stuff. But then again, we're back down a bit like the kind of Vettel kind of conundrum. He's, you know, they have this sudden they appear and then you're like, "Yep, told you, he's still there." Then the next race, they're 14th. What? All right, okay. They really, I think both of them should have listened to that stirring rendition of the Austrian national anthem. Maybe gets the juices flowing, because that was impressive. That you know,
that was something, wasn't it?
Like, oh, it was brilliant. The Eurovision Song Contest judges were applauding that bad boy. That was impressive.
Oh God, yeah, I know what you mean. We did see a glimpse of it. He had a very good weekend in France, I think. A very good team effort for him. Great teamwork between him and Norris, and for him to come down like this. I mean, if you put those issues that Ricciardo had onto Norris's car, Norris would have, you know, he probably would have still finished in the points, but he would have been further down. So it's a bit harsh to, you know, you can't really criticize him for it. We know how talented he is. He's a multiple race winner. He's a very fast guy on his day, but he just needs another good weekend. I thought he would have kicked on after France, and qualifying didn't really show that. But he's got another chance next weekend. I think this circuit really does suit that McLaren. I think it's comfortably the third fastest car around the Red Bull ring. So hopefully a better weekend for him next weekend, and for McLaren's sake as well, because at the moment Norris is just carrying that team to third in the constructors, and he can't do it by himself.
No.
So
I mean, there's a few things that will change. You know, we don't know what the weather's like next week, so that, you know,
the forecast won't tell us.
Yeah, you know,
every week it says it's going to rain, and it never does. I'm sick of predicting it.
The raindrops started falling straight after the race finished. They were saying in the sky coverage it started to rain. Oh, well done, thanks. You know, Mother Nature's got a really twisted sense of humour when it comes to rain in Formula One. And also, the Pirelli tyres are one step softer, I think they said. At least they are softer. I'm not sure if they're one step softer, but they are going to be softer next weekend. I think Max Verstappen said that at the post-race interview. So, you know, we've got a couple of wee things that will change it around. So, you know, hopefully the wee gremlins that crept in for Ricciardo and those wee changes for next weekend, yeah, we'll be able to see some sort of changes and pushing them further up the grid. I'm not holding my breath, because I'd be dead if I held my breath for Ricciardo to have a consistent season, and Vettel. So, you know, I'm hopeful. I think, let's put it that way.
Oh, yeah, very quietly optimistic. I'm the same with Ricciardo. I don't want to get my hopes up too much of him, but let's see how he gets on. He's doing his best at the end of the day, I think. A guy that is definitely disappointing, and it's not because of some technical gremlin or whatever, is Esteban Ocon, 14th place today, Owain, and we kind of predicted it yesterday after qualifying. Ever since, I mean, it's only 2 races, but ever since he signed that new deal, he's really showing why Alpine shouldn't have signed him.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you think, is there a break clause? So it's a really poor performance, I think, for Ocon, given what his teammate is doing in the car. And to be honest, Ocon's been there a year longer, should understand the car better, should understand a lot of things better. And I don't know how much of it is Ocon's confidence has been knocked. Maybe, they've been saying that, Fernando Alonso can come into a team and just, make it his and do all these different things. And there's probably a lot of good faith around Enstone for Alonso. But in comparison, Ocon's just been really anonymous and not in a good way, to be honest. It's just, for some reason, it's almost as if he's checked out, which is weird. And people in worse cars, objectively worse cars, like the Alfa Romeo, are bringing in 11th places, and Ocon's just kind of there in an Alpine that's getting a lot of investment, and it just doesn't look great for what has happened. he needs to get his head in gear. I mean, he's got 3 years to do it. Luckily, there's not pressure that way, so I assume he will get better because Ocon's, a decent racing driver, but it's a 14th place, and that's not great.
No, it's bad. I mean, you can maybe forgive qualifying a little bit, but he started 17th. He's ended up 14th. 2 guys ahead of him retired. He's only passed 1 driver, and I think that was Giovinazzi. So and when his teammate Alonso, I think Coops mentioned it earlier on that Alonso's going to hit 40 sooner if it's not already hit 40. That's the kind of age where people think, right, okay, well, probably time you retire now, or think about retiring. Ocon's a young charger. He used to be in the Mercedes Academy. I don't know if he still is. He's managed by Toto Wolff. He has been. He's not. He's not been. He's been got rid of from the Mercedes Academy. It's always a bit of the. I don't know what's happening with that scenario. But he's the guy who should. He's been linked for a Mercedes seat before. How much truth there has been in that, I don't think there's been a lot, to be honest. But it's still there. And for him to do that today, it's just. Yeah, it's not good. It's not what you want. It really isn't. It's really bad by him. A guy that was more anonymous though was Antonio Giovinazzi. He started 15th, finished 15th. I don't think there's really any point talking about him, to be honest with you, other than that. So we'll talk about the Haas cars, because Mick Schumacher actually beat Nicholas Latifi today. That's something for him. And the other guy was last as usual, Coops. I mean, I don't really know what to say, to be honest with you, about them. We've got to give them a mention, at least, as a collective.
Yeah, well, yeah, they're there. It's the participation award. I mean, the funniest thing that ever actually happened with Haas was Günther Steiner gave Mazepin a present, which was a spinning top. It was literally the spinning top. They actually gave him in a nice box. You're lucky that guy has a sense of humour. Because he just had a laugh, and I think he made a comment, well, you can spin that one and not the car this time, something like that, and he was having a good laugh about it. So they're there. It'll be Mazepin Formula One by next year, probably. It's when a team comes out at the start of the season and says, we're not actually going to do it into this car, then what else are you going to do? You're just going to have a wee battle with yourself. It's like when you get F1 2021 in the PlayStation, and you're in my team, and you've played it in professional and never done a racing game. You're down the back of the grid, never need MD, doing your own thing. Mazepin's probably the most hated Formula One driver that's ever been in a racing car. Seems to have cooled off a wee bit with that, but I think they're forgetting that Schumacher's made probably similar, maybe just as many mistakes. Paul Ricard, he binned it. He binned it under the safety car. But yeah, and to touch on Giovinazzi, I mean, he's probably the most anonymous Formula One driver I've ever heard of in my life. I mean, the guy could come and chat at my door and say hello, and I wouldn't have a clue who the guy is.
Oh, come on, you must recognise Italian Jesus. He stands out.
Oh, no, but he could. I'm still. He'd be like, "Hi," unless he actually says his name's Antonio Giovinazzi. I'd be like, "Who are you?" All right, yeah, okay, good, cool. He's doing well in terms of he's keeping up with Raikkonen. But yeah, he's just. I don't know. I mean, I hope he's got a personality, because if he doesn't, I mean. And if he loses the job with Alfa Romeo, he's really got nothing going for him, really, to be fair.
If he loses the seat at Alfa Romeo, I can't see anybody going for him, to be honest with you. That's with the greatest respect to the guy. I think he's doing an all right job this year, but anonymous, again, is another word you use to describe him. That's not what you want to be as a Formula One driver. It really isn't.
I mean, we can all agree that Raikkonen's probably coming to the end of his career, but one of the big things about Raikkonen is he's amazing at setup, and he's amazing at feedback. I mean, he knows the feel of the car, and with a career that lasts about as long as I can remember, Kimi Raikkonen's been driving a car. You would expect
20 years.
Yeah. So he's got something that keeps people interested. And as you say, if Giovinazzi goes through a wee period where he keeps being anonymous, and I think he's fortunate he's driving an Alfa Romeo, because there isn't going to be much in the way of expectation. George dropping something when we're talking about Giovinazzi is probably the most exciting thing we've actually had about Giovinazzi in a conversation.
That has woken up everybody who's fallen asleep while we're talking about Gio
Yeah, exactly,
and the Haas. So you can thank me for that one.
It doesn't. We tend to fall asleep when Giovinazzi comes in. I think he's Formula One's ASMR, to be honest. Yeah.
Giovinazzi's got Sky Italia F1 coverage written all over him, I feel like.
Yeah. Oh, him and Valsecchi analysing stuff in Italian. I've no idea what they're talking about, but it'd be great to see, I think.
Whatever it is, it's dynamic. I mean, to be fair, he's probably, actually thinking about it, he's probably a shoe-in for the Ferrari hypercar program in a few years.
Ooh. Oh. Yeah, is he still a Ferrari junior? Yeah. He's not really junior, is he? But
he's not really junior. He's
still under the Ferrari Academy or the Ferrari
Academy, Italian driver. It's perfect marketing, and you know the drivers that haven't got they're just missing maybe that 5 or 10%. They usually end up there.
Yeah, so we'll have to see what happens with Gio. He's not having too bad of a period. He did get a point for Alfa Romeo, the first one in I think it was Monaco, wasn't it? So not doing too terrible, but yeah, doing terrible are the Haas. I mean, I think it's somewhat of a miracle that Schumacher was only 2 laps down and Mazepin was only 3 laps down. I predicted him to be at least 5 laps down this race. And we didn't have a safety car of any kind. So, credit where it's due, I suppose. They didn't finish properly last because Latifi saved him from that. He was 17th. So, but he had a crash, didn't he, at the start of something away. There was a reason why he was so far back.
Was that Latifi?
Can't remember. Yeah.
No, Latifi got caught out with Gasly. He got a puncture from Gasly trying to.
He did, yes.
Yeah, so it was Gasly trying to avoid everybody, and he clipped. Was it Giovinazzi spun round, and just as Latifi went to go round, clipped his rear wheel and ended up in the pits with a flat tire and all. So I'd imagine when being so far down the order, there must have been some kind of floor damage to that Williams, because that Williams isn't a bad car. It's not a fast car, but it's not a bad car.
It's not a Haas's level of badness.
Yeah, well, that's it. Yeah. You've got to think as well, like the Haas team, like what kind of motivation do you have when you're working for the Haas team? Whoa, wait, what position are you going to expect today? Well, 19th. We might push for 18th. Really? Okay. Awesome. Yeah. Jack, you'll get out of Q1. Are you kidding? We're lucky to get out the car park. All right. I don't know.
16th place is good for them. Like
it is. This is one of the best results this season, I think.
We beat our Williams.
Yes, one of them was in the garage. Yay!
Oh,
I don't know.
Yeah, and we've got to talk about that Williams in the garage. This is still too raw. George Russell, he legitimately started. Well, he qualified 11th. He moved up to 10th because of Tsunoda's penalty. He started on the medium tyres and he was legitimately running in 8th place for about half the race. But then Owain, as it always does with Russell, something happened. He had lost of pneumatic pressure or something like that. He had to go into the pit several times. Williams tried the best to keep it going, but in the end, 36 laps was all he ended up racing, and it could have been absolutely massive for them. With those 4 points that he could have got, they would have moved ahead of Alfa Romeo and the constructors, but as it is, they're still on nil points.
Yeah, I mean they've got another 150 kilometers out with their out that power unit, so that's preferable. Otherwise, it's just kind of, it seems like Russell's promise almost sets up the fact that the racing gods don't like him. Whenever he's in a good position or whenever he's about to do something, and he is sitting there. Sat there in 8th place on merit. Let's not forget.
He was catching Alonso.
And wasn't too far behind. I don't know whether it contributed being behind him in the dirty air for so long. That I don't know why. I don't know how that would impact your pneumatic pressure, but apparently it does. It just causes someone to go, no, you can't have that, and smite him essentially, and just end up with a DNF or a spin, or someone runs into him or something like that. It's really, really depressing to be a Russell fan, which is a shame because he's so exciting and it's just nothing seems to go right for him at times. He must feel like he's cursed. And in some ways, I feel like we've been robbed of a race because he wasn't in eighth, and we didn't see the interactions between, Stroll, Alonso, and Tsunoda, and all on a piece of track, and maybe fighting it out and stuff, and things like that. And that I think that extends even also to Gasly as well. Gasly was in a great position, and we've robbed of that as in addition to Russell's retirement. So I think those two retirements were actually really key, and it's disappointing that we've had them at all.
Yeah, I genuinely think, looking at how the race shaped out, I think Russell would have been 10th. He was behind Alonso, and I don't think Tsunoda would have passed him. I mean, he could have tried, but he was legitimately ahead of Tsunoda through the race. But again, it just wasn't to be, and it's not to be for Williams. They haven't scored a point since 2019. It's awful. It's awful because their car is improving. It's improved year on year for the last 2 years, but they just can't get the results for whatever reason. It doesn't happen for them. And like Owain mentioned there, Coops, another guy that did really, really well in qualifying, qualified sixth in the Alpha Tauri was Pierre Gasly. But Charles Leclerc just robbed us of a chance of seeing a good result for him.
Wrong place, wrong time at the start of the race for poor Gasly. You can't really do much about that. The only thing I could think of is how the hell did he get to the pits and rip the wheel off? You've got a tyre that's deflated, you slow down. But then he rolls into the pits, and the rear left wheel's facing the wrong way. Like, oh, okay,
that's a problem.
Yeah, that's an issue. Yeah, they're all the guys. You saw the shot in the pits, and they're all looking at it, and they're all. You just imagine them going, "Yeah, that's broken." Yeah, you think, pal, we're gonna get a quote for that, buddy. The Alpha Tauri car is a good car. And their drivers just aren't clicking together. We all got a wee bit overexcited with Tsunoda getting the points in the first race. Ever since then, he's became the rookie that he's supposed to be. And Gasly, either luck or just, I think it was at Bahrain, he handed it into the back of Ricardo and, tripped over other people and ended up down. They need a quiet, boring race like everyone else had today, and they just scoop up a handful of points. Poor Gasly, nothing else you could really do about it. They had a wee bit of bumping and barging with Leclerc. You wouldn't expect someone like Leclerc to misjudge it and take the wheel off. And unfortunately, where it ended up happening, he ended up destroying a couple other people's races in the process. That is just one of those situations for poor Gasly. But yeah, the Alpha Tauri have a good setup, and they probably could be in front of, if they get their fingers together, they could be way in front of the Aston Martin. The problem they have is, with Aston Martin floundering at the start of the season, it was their perfect opportunity to get a good foundation, and they never capitalised on it. They just didn't. And that, and now that Aston Martin, with the resources they've got, the fact that they knew what their problem was and they're fixing it, and they're getting, Stroll's becoming very consistent. Vettel's a wee bit hot and cold, but he's usually there or thereabouts. They've missed that opportunity to get in amongst the fight properly, and I don't see them recovering, to be honest.
I thought after the first few rounds of the season, I thought they'd be up there with McLaren and Ferrari challenging for third and fourth, but they are in fifth. But it's only 2 points now. They're only 2 points ahead of Aston Martin. It is very tight between those two. Apart from the guys at the very bottom, that's the closest battle we've got in the constructors at the moment. So
yeah, it should have been a lot further for them, considering how bad
100%.
Aston Martin were. But you have to take your chances and take your opportunities when they come. Look at Norris and the McLaren. He's doing exactly what he's supposed to do, probably exceeding expectation. And they didn't. So, hopefully things can swing round. And all they need, I think, Alpha Tauri, especially Tsunoda, they just need a couple of races where they just get in, they qualify the cars where they should be. You're talking the bottom of the top 10, 9, 10, 8, 7, kind of round about that area is where they should be. And they just go on and finish where they're supposed to finish. No dramas, no issues. That should kick their season on. Their car's decent. And that Honda is a good power unit. It's a solid thing, and it's reliable. That's the thing. We've known for the last couple of years that Honda have a good power unit. It just was never reliable enough. And it now is. So they have everything. They have the tools. They just need to get it together. A bit like McLaren, Mercedes. They have all the tools, but something's just not quite gelling. There's just that slight spanner in there that's not making it run as smooth as it should be for both those teams, for different circumstances and different situations. But once those two teams get things sorted out, I think it should push them further up the constructor if they do get it sorted. That is.
Yeah, AlphaTauri's issue doesn't seem to be the car really, because like you say, it's reliable and it's really quick, but they just can't seem to hook it up, whether it's the setup, whether it's the drivers, whether it's a bit of both. I think it's a bit of both, to be honest with you, at times. Yeah. Gasly, though, is wringing the neck out of that thing. I mean, I saw his qualifying record this season. I think apart from Spain and Portugal, he's started in the top 6 every race, which is bloody impressive. That's some serious consistency.
Problem is when you take it over to the race, it's not transferring over, and that's the biggest problem. You could, if they were able to keep that consistency, you would have Gasly fighting Norris, which is a tasty wee fight. If you think about it, they're both pretty good drivers and good at what they are and got good pieces of kit behind them. But I can't think off the top of my head if everything's just been poor races or whether if there's been other situations similar to today where Gasly's just been in the wrong place at the wrong time. But the luck needs to change somehow, and hopefully it's not the luck that Valtteri Bottas has been given, because none of us want that luck, to be honest.
Yeah. Or George Russell, even worse.
Well, that's true, George Russell. Yeah, I think the only thing for George Russell is when he goes to Mercedes, that he doesn't take that luck with him, and we're sitting halfway through a season in Mercedes, and he's like a bit like Leclerc's almost first win, where he should have won. Was it China? And then his engine went.
Bahrain. Yeah.
Was it Bahrain? We don't want to see that, and all of us getting excited in a few laps to the end, and his engine dies, or something goes wrong, or whatever. We want him. Get rid of all that luck now, and let's see the George Russell that we expect to see when he hits the Mercedes, which I don't think MD, other than the most ardent Bottas fan, if there are any of them, would say that he's not going to be in that seat next year. You imagine Red Bull thinking that they can get a hold of George Russell when they've got a spare seat next season. He's out of contract at Williams. I think Mateschitz and Marco will be looking at him and thinking, oh, hold on. I think it's going to take a lot of things to happen, and I don't think Toto Wolff is going to let it happen, but, it's still a very, very slight possibility if Mercedes drag their heels on someone as promising as him. And, do any of us have the patience to be driving that Williams for 3 years where it's sitting? And everyone's saying you're amazing, you're the next best thing, and then not to be given the Mercedes drive? I mean, and maybe it's just me, but I'd be like, all right, see you later. Red Bull. All right, guys. Max Verstappen and George Russell in a Red Bull. Oh, tasty. Anyway.
I think most people will be like that, won't they? He's got so much patience to have done it for this 2.5 years so far, but yeah.
And he's never said anything wrong. He's played the media. He's done it right. It's always been about the team player. He's never spat the dummy. He's never went, well, this is wrong. Or even when he's chance at the victory, when he was in the Mercedes, he was gutted and he was clear, but he's not put a foot wrong out of the car, and he's very rarely put a foot wrong in the car. He's pretty much the full package, and he's still very young. So, it would be a very stupid decision. It's been a very stupid decision to keep Valtteri Bottas in the car for the last 2 or 3 years, to be honest. I think it'll be even worse now, especially considering the stars are more aligned than they ever have been.
Yeah.
In terms of contracts and stuff.
Yeah, his time will come. For me, George Russell's the next Lewis Hamilton. I know that's a big statement, but he can absolutely do what Hamilton has done in that Mercedes, as long as the Mercedes is as good as it has been for the last 7 years or so. But yeah, those are the teams and the drivers, all 20 drivers we've covered there. And we'll give our drivers of the day now. And some will say, I'm a big George Russell fan. And some people might say it's a bit of a pity vote, but I'm going to give him driver of the day partly because I feel sorry for him, but also partly because what more could he have done? He was 8,000 off getting into Q3, into the top 10. He drove his heart out. What more could the guy could have done? What more could he have done? It was his team and his car that let him down. But yeah, George Russell's my driver of the day. Owain, who's your choice?
I think I've got to give it to Sainz, really, just given where he started and where he's finished. It's a really good performance, and he's proved me wrong, which I'm quite happy to have happen. And it's because the sort of places he's made up when I was writing it off 24 hours ago, and he's just really showed me who knows what they're doing and who's just a pundit.
12 to 6 is nothing to shake a stick at. Fair play to Sainz. He's really slotting into that Ferrari incredibly well. Coops, who's your pick for driver of the day?
I'm kind of torn. I'm torn between Norris just because he's just keeping the consistency up, doing what he's supposed to do, and then Leclerc. I'm going with the masses. I think I'm going to have to give it. I was just about to give you a name there, and then I've changed my mind again. I'll say Leclerc because it's a very Alonso type performance, and if you can put anybody in the same category as Alonso in a race in terms of wringing the neck out of a car, then he's done something right. He's made up for the mistake. It was his mistake. He's went in and he's just went about it and got himself up to where the Ferraris are. Coupled with they've got themselves that Carlos Sainz drive from 12th up the way. So, I mean, driver team of the day probably Ferrari. In all honesty, you had Sainz in 12th, you had Leclerc at the back of the grid, and they still managed to get 6th and 7th. So they're quietly doing what they're supposed to have been doing last year. For me, it has to be Leclerc.
Fair enough. Those are 14 big points for Ferrari, and they can keep their consistent run up. That France result was very much a blip for them, it looks like. But yeah, those are our drivers of the day. Those are the guys we would have given 5 stars. And if you want to give us 5 stars on iTunes, we will give you a shout out at the start of the show. Just leave us a nice comment on there and we'll read you out, give you a shout out. But yeah, I'll give you guys a chance to plug as well. Coops, I've mentioned that you're a part of the F1 podcast, but where can people find that?
We're on all the social medias. We've got a Discord server. We're on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook, and it's at Join EF1. There's a whole load of us on there. We do a weekly podcast similar to you guys, just chatting everything Formula One, basically.
Yeah, I've been on that show as well. It's a good show. Do enjoy listening to that as well. You have some excellent guests on. Owain, where can people see and hear more from you?
I'll try my best, but I don't think it's going to go too well. But if you like to see the lighter side of things, maybe something to do with how the rain never comes. I do a sort of.
That's the name for a podcast. That.
How the rain never comes.
The rain never comes.
There we go. That's trademark for me.
The lighter side of Formula One.
Oh,
no, that's a good name. Yeah,
I should have thought.
Someone wants to go for that. Go for it. Just credit us. Credit Owain.
Get some royalties out of that. I do the sort of a top 10 meme roundup on sportlightpro.com. I'll try and find my best, but I'm not.
No, you are. Don't.
Oh no, I'm not confident on what's going to happen this week.
No, I don't think the memes will quite be the best ones, but he does it for every race, so you can always look back at the previous ones. There's some absolute banger ones in there. So yes, you can find our show on YouTube. We've really been doing well on there recently, getting a lot of subscribers on our channel, over 100 now, and we want to aim to go even higher. So if we get close to 200 subscribers on our YouTube channel, that would be very much appreciated. Just search F1 Grid Talk on YouTube and you'll be able to find our channel. We're also available on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, Verbal, Omni Studio, and Pocket Cast, and of course the F1 Chronicle website as well. Just search for the Formula One Grid Talk. Go and check out our back catalogue of shows as well. We've got over 100 episodes now for you to get through, and that's not just race previews, reviews, and qualifying reviews, but also more documentary style ones, like one about Ayrton Senna, one about Michael Schumacher, Tiregate, the 1994 Benetton conspiracy, and a hell of a lot more. And yes, we'll be back from 8 o'clock tomorrow, BST. That's 8 p.m. To preview the Austrian Grand Prix. Thank you very much for joining us, lads. I do appreciate it as always.
Cheers.
Not a problem.
And yeah, we'll see you tomorrow for that one. Goodbye.
Bye.
That's good to confirm.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I need to get off pretty sharpish, but I will have a look and see if anybody's left us any comments on the YouTube. Let's have a look. Oh, God. My girlfriend's connected YouTube to the TV downstairs, so it's messing with her. I can't really look at the live stream. Oh, what are you doing?
Do it. Just
put us on. How weird would that be if like she's just watching something and all of a sudden just our faces are there like.
Game I like to play when back when you could go around people's houses a bit more easily. Is you just turn over the TV to whatever the you can mess with the music selection and things like that.
Oh God, like I'd be working from home and I get a call from work and Alana just put on a random music video or something like full volume and I'm just there like frantically looking for the remote to be like, yeah, we need to get the reports done, don't we? Like oh right. So we've got quite a few comments actually. Connor Walker's on here as always. Hey Connor, good to hear from you, one of our loyalist fans. Question for the day. Maybe I missed it yesterday, but can you guys give your thoughts on the pit stop rule changes? Now, I've not really seen a hell of a lot from this, but I think they're meant to be trying to slow down the pit stops again somehow. Do you guys know how they're doing that at all? Or?
I think it's to do with the sensors, to do with it's because everything's almost automated. It's the pit gun puts it on. They put a button, it goes green, and then they go. There's not really a lollipop man like there used to be back in the day. So I think there's something to do with sensors. The directives came in under safety. That's why the FIA can put it in, because they're worried that things are getting too quick, that things are going to get missed. Of course, the tinfoil hat brigade are coming out and saying they're doing it to slow it down to help Mercedes, which. Come on, guys, put the tinfoil away, stop smoking whatever you're smoking. It's got nothing to do with that. But I haven't delved into how they're doing it. I don't know why it means that they're being slow. To be honest, I think that a lot of the articles that I'm looking at, it's a bit clickbaity. FIA are trying to slow them down and people are starting to worry their 5-second pit stops. It's not that. I don't think it's going to be quite as drastic as that.
It'll probably be like a few tenths of a second or something.
Yeah, I think maybe it'll just stay just above the 2-second mark. Red Bull. I think Christian Horner said that the fastest they done the pit stop after the Perez one was 1.5 seconds, and it was that quick that the timing thing had to put it at 2. So, that's some fast work. And if you do some fast work with the wheels and don't put them on right, somebody's getting hurt. So. I can see why they're getting a bit nervy with it. Is it necessary? Don't know. Like you guys, I haven't delved into it enough to really know what it is they're doing, but I'm sure it's to do with sensors and how that works, whether it's a few tenth delay just to allow things to be checked. But again, I don't know 100%.
I mean, it's the same thing we had, sort of 2007, 8. I remember with these traffic light systems, rather than the lollipop things you used to have, lollipop guy you used to have on the front of the car.
Yeah.
They after a few sort of spates of accidents with that, there was increased scrutiny and sort of looking into how the teams actually do this and are they releasing things a bit too early.
Then was that not Ferrari that made that mistake a few times? I remember.
Yes, a number of times.
Yeah, it seemed to be Ferrari's system, and eventually they went, "Yeah, we're going to put the guy at the front of the car now."
Yeah,
because the drivers were programmed to look at a green light, and they went. Well, half the time they were still fueling the car, which doesn't work. I'm sure your aerodynamic efficiency of a Formula One car is disrupted when there's a big fuel rig attached to the back of it. So yeah, it is what it is. It's under safety. It's not to slow Mercedes down, because Mercedes aren't just a few tenths behind Red Bull at the minute. They're a good. They were 15 seconds at the end of this race, and so it's not a big deal, I think. Unless we suddenly see the fastest pit stop at the Hungarian Grand Prix being 5 seconds, then maybe there is an issue. Are we going to see an FIA delegate go round and kick the tyres before he lets it go out? Right, lads, we're good to go. It's going to
Yes.
I'm just looking. It's to do with the gaps between certain things happening. So the FIA is concerned about the level of automation, and that things are switching over. Immediately once the button's been pressed on the last gun, that the car is being let down, and then immediately after that, the driver's being given
a go.
Get the go ahead, and so they're trying to bring in sort of the human reaction time. So they're building in a tolerance of 0.15 of a second from the wheels being observed to tight to the jackman. So obviously, whatever procedure that is, I guess, hands going up or whatever. So, and then a 2.2 second tolerance then enforced from the jacks being removed. So the wheels on the ground, and then the driver getting the signal on the traffic light or whatever system they do have to exit their box.
It's 0.2, that one.
Yeah,
I was going to say 2.2. I'm like, woofed.
Oh, so I say 2.2. No, sorry, I went to go. So I went to go to. I got caught between 0.2 and 0.2. That would actually bring us up to
That would be the 5 second pit stops.
So the most it's going to increase it by is 0.35 seconds in theory, but in practice, obviously, there's reaction time anyway. So
it's probably going to be.
It's going to be like a tenth.
4 to 5 tenths, I would say. Just bearing in mind human reaction time to all of this stuff is going to be. You got the window of you can't react faster than a tenth of a second. So.
I mean, they already do that for the start of the Grand Prix. So people coming up and saying that they're bringing this in purely for the fact that Mercedes are losing a lot of rubbish. Because I think they say if you react before a certain point, I think you've touched on their own.
It's athletics is a tenth of a second you have between the gun going and in movement.
Yeah, so it's like anticipation, isn't it? Yeah, it's anticipation. So you're going when you think it's time to go. So. So I don't see it being a big deal. I'm surprised it's probably taking this long to come in, to be honest. As you say, it's half a second that push. Maybe once they get used to that kind of system, naturally it'll go down a wee bit.
Time anyway, yeah.
Yeah, so it'll probably just be a 0.2 of a second, which if everybody has to do it, it's still the status quo. It's not like they've turned around and told Red Bull, you've got to change your system, but Mercedes can't. They can keep the faster system. So it's just the fickle world of Formula One fans, I think, when they go on about things like that, to be honest.
They're changing it. I don't like it.
Yeah. Changing it, don't like it, but I want to change it because it's boring. That's basically what it is.
And then it's... or when they chinned Red Bull over the flexi wing, I saw somebody on Twitter go on about, DAS was illegal, and you never changed that, but you're telling Red Bull, it's all... And I'm like, DAS wasn't illegal.
DAS was legal. That's the thing.
Was legal. It was just, it was never really in the rules. That's why it was allowed.
It wasn't in the rules. It just wasn't out the rules either.
Exactly.
It's a grey area.
And then the thing as well was...
It's like that in the F-Duct all over again, because it's copycat systems of what they're actually trying to legislate for, not the one that's been developed over 3 years by Mercedes, very meticulously.
In conjunction with the FIA, they came up with an idea and went to the FIA and said, can we do this? They went, yes. What is it? And they went, this is what it is. They went, oh, that's good. And then they put a wee thing in to say you can't do that for next year, but you're allowed it this year. So in the flexi wing situation was they designed the wing to flex to pass a test, and then it flexes because the FIA can't test it when it's moving. They test the flexibility of the wings static. So no, you didn't pass, so that's illegal.
Yeah, I think that comes to like a spirit. It's a spirit.
It's a sporting regulation.
There's a sporting regulation and then backed up by a testing procedure that's meant to enforce said sporting regulation, but, give Formula One teams they'll look at it and go, well, if we just had it flex non-linearly,
yes,
then it'll be fine.
It'll pass the test, but it'll flex more when we move the car, and they don't test when we move the car. And then,
I mean,
did
this
they
is
forget there's cameras?
This is exactly the same as, when you turn the wheel. The Formula One teams have been making the suspension geometry and the way that the wheel is pushed out by the steering arm so that it drops. You're allowed a certain amount of drop on the wheel on turning, because obviously you get slightly better aerodynamic performance. And the teams went, well, I'm assuming the teams. I'm speculating here, but they went, well, we do it to the test, I'm allowed 5 millimeters past a certain, 12.5 degrees or whatever it was, steering lock. Well, if I go past 12.5 degrees, I can have way more than, 5 mil or whatever it is.
Yeah.
There's clever engineers in there, and they read the rules twice.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, that was part of the issue with the tire failures in Baku. The Pirelli said that the PSI had to be this, or that, this is what it has to be. So yes, it was, but then no one checks them after they're given back to the teams, and the teams don't like mandatory PSI. They want it lower. So that's why Pirelli came out and went, the racing conditions of the tyre led to the failure. And they went, we ran it based on what you told us, when we tested them. Every team does it. Every team has done it since I've watched Formula One till then. Back in the day when I started watching Formula One, I'm going to show off my age now. It was the active suspension Formula One cars, that eventually they got banned because they were dangerous, but because drivers lost the feel of the car. But all that kind of stuff. You had I'm forgetting which car it is now. Is it the McLaren with the extra brake pedal?
Yeah.
We all do it, and then you've got the new regulations coming in, where the Formula One set up a team specifically designed to find the loopholes in the new regulations. So, it is what it is. You give a set of regulations, and I've tried to read them. I can't make sense of them because of the language it's used. You give a set of regulations to 10 engineers, and 5 of them are going to come up with different interpretations of them.
Absolutely. Got another question. Sorry to move on. We've got another question that I want to get you guys' opinions on. I got Michael Gonzalez has put, are Mercedes still adjusting to the rate changes? How much is it that Mercedes is adjusting to the rule changes, or are Red Bull / Honda giving Max a better car this year? I think Red Bull and Honda is just giving Max a better car. I think it's clearly a better car, especially recently. I mean, maybe earlier on the season it was more even, but I've always said that the Red Bull is the better car, and when they get it hooked up, that I think it's better overall, to be honest.
I think it's a bit of both, to be honest, because it was very clear very quickly that the higher rate cars didn't get affected as much by the changes in regulations. And if you were watching Formula One, Omar Snafnauer, the principal of Aston Martin, reminded everybody at every opportunity that the regulations affected his car more. And Aston Martin aren't that different from Mercedes in terms of cars. Now, they're not quite the pink Mercedes of last year, but they're close.
It's an evolution of that, isn't it? It's always going to be quite similar.
So, it's as you say, it's an evolution. So, the regulations have hampered everybody, but not quite Red Bull. But as you say, when you've got a Red Bull, you've got a Red Bull team with Max Verstappen in it, a Honda powered car that's reliable and fast, and Adrian Newey. If you get everything together, you're going to make a car that works. So I don't think it's as much as people might want you to believe. Plus, the other thing as well is Mercedes haven't said that the rules are the issue. Even Hamilton hasn't come out and said that. And you know what drivers are like? They have to find a reason for everything. They've just come out and said, we're not fast enough. Something's not right. So I don't think the rules are quite as bad as it's made out to be. They have affected it, but not quite as bad as...
Am I right in thinking that Mercedes, with the token system for development this year, that Mercedes actually haven't told us what they've used their tokens to redevelop?
I don't think they did, no.
Well, I mean, I'm speculating, heavy speculation, but just based on that, it could be to do with whatever they've redeveloped in certain ways.
Could be.
I doubt it, because that's, this is now just what it could be. But, I think I agree with you. I think Mercedes aren't that bad. I think they've just got a little bit of a big question mark, a missing link, and they just can't work out what it is.
Max is on fire as well, which is not helping the cause because they did both beat Bottas today, but Max was miles ahead. So I think Max Verstappen is really finding his form, and I think, like Lewis Hamilton, once he gets in his stride, he's going to take a hell of a lot of stopping.
Oh, there's going to have to be shenanigans. Something's going to fail. Verstappen, we're kind of lucky that Mr. Verstappen's got this opportunity and got the car under him now, because 2 or 3 years ago, he'd probably have crashed out a couple of races because, he's stepped up in his maturity. 5 minutes after the Baku situation, after he kicked the tyre and walked away, he was fine. He was talking, it's just one of those things. Max Verstappen 2 or 3 years ago wouldn't be like that. Max Verstappen would have been fucking raged and would have kept going. But as you say, Mercedes, people are forgetting that Mercedes were making mistakes that aren't Mercedes like last year. But just because Hamilton won the title and nobody was really competing, we didn't really notice it. I mean, you look at, was it Sochi, where Hamilton got his 2-second penalties because they were like, you just do your start, whatever you want, it's fine. Then you had the Italian Grand Prix where he was told to come in when the
red light was on.
Yeah, the red light was on. And I'm sure there's more than one, so they haven't quite been firing on all cylinders. And, Formula One is such a precision. The slightest thing that's out, it's like having a massive, engine. You put a tiny wee spanner in that engine, it doesn't work. So, it's the same situation with Mercedes. I think things just aren't quite as smooth as they want them to be. And also, with the added pressure of actually having a championship that doesn't involve their 2 drivers. And let's be fair, if it's a championship with Bottas and Hamilton, even when the points are nothing each, we all know who's winning that. So I think there's a combination of things. But yeah, Mercedes really aren't the Mercedes we know.
It doesn't help that the Mercedes setup has had to change a little bit, I think, between last year and this year.
Yeah, they have said that, but they've also not complained about it, unlike Aston Martin. They've just said, yeah, it's hurt us, but we just got to get on with it.
Oh no, I mean management wise, just going back on to what Coops said, just like it's one of those things where it's a finely tuned machine. I reckon that some of the best performances we've ever seen on certain cars is just because, for whatever reason, on that day, every single piece was assembled properly, assembled in such a way that just everything worked, close to the computer simulations, which are obviously perfect on those. I think the same sort of things happen maybe with the management structure or something like that. And maybe it's just, it's those small, tiny little details that just pull a team slightly just out of its sort of off its trajectory and brings people not pulling all the same way. They've made some changes they've had to, replace, and maybe Andrew Shovlin isn't not being there is just overstretching some person to the point where they can't, this is getting sort of back into the psychology of, of people and how they work in a management structure, but I think it could be even as slight as that.
I think certain. I think I've read and heard a lot about him recently. I've been looking him up quite a bit, but I think not having Nicky Lauda in that team's probably hurt him as well. I think he was a real force in that team, and right now it'd be galvanizing Hamilton in particular, and I think that could be hurting them a little, to be honest. But who knows? Maybe that's not it. Maybe it's something else. But that's just my thoughts.
I mean, there is always, like, you look at Ferrari for the 7 years Schumacher was there. You had Braun, you had John Todt, you had Schumacher, you had all the best guys there, and they all worked together. The minute things started to get a bit tough, it didn't quite work for them. And as Owen said there, it doesn't take much to knock that out. It's such a finely balanced thing. I think we're just a bit more shocked at it because of how long and how dominant Mercedes have been, which is not a fault of Mercedes. That's a fault of the other teams not getting their shit together.
Absolutely, yeah. Right, well, I hate to be rude, lads, but it's been, honestly, I could talk about this all day, but I really need to get going.
No worries.
Not a problem.
I will, I'll let you know when the next show is, but I won't be on it because I'll be not too far away from you, Coops. I'm heading up to Scotland on a road trip next week, which should be a lot of fun.
Awesome. Look out for the haggis. It's haggis season.
It's haggis season. I'm going to try it. I've never had it before.
Do they grow on trees or?
No.
It's a vegetable in Scotland. It's one of your 5 a day.
It's one of the 5 a day. It's the pig's stomach lined with all sorts of crap. I'm vegetarian, so I can't remember the last time I've had one of them. But come up and enjoy it. We'll be fine. Well, not too bad. Well, just don't mention the football, right? Just don't mention the football.
I will not mention the football. Don't worry. I am not looking forward to fights. I'm not looking forward to fights. So yeah, especially if you lose to Germany on Tuesday.
Find out what's more offensive: mentioning the football or putting on a really fake Scottish accent.
The latter, I think.
We just, and I know we're on YouTube, but just to say one last thing: the word "cunt" in Scotland is actually a term of endearment. All right, we use it for so many different things. So if someone says that word, don't frown. You're fine. It's usually about the word beforehand. Oh, you're a good cunt. You're a bad cunt.
It's all about context.
It's
all
context.
About context.
It's taught in schools up here. That word. It's a good word.
And on that note, we'll see you tomorrow.
Now we've scared off every sponsor.
Oh, cheerio. Sorry, guys.
It's all right, mate. It's all right. Take